The speaker is Neville Johnson. He walked with the Lord for between 45 and 50 years. You would see him just literally physically every day, almost every single day. And angels also, too. He was translated by the Lord all over the world to do different missions. And he's been down into hell, and he's been up into heaven, all the different parts, many different portions of heaven, the outer court, the inner court, paradise, and he describes them. He talks about the end times, the last days, the final generation, us, and what our purpose is here. And it gives us, tries to inform us and give us strength um, to get through things such as the Antichrist, the New World Order, the world government, the world religion, one world church, false prophet, one world bank, cashless society, the mark of the beast, World War III, the tribulation, the rapture, the one world court, the two witnesses, the one world economy, one world military force, the economic collapse, and World Council of Churches. And a lot of his prophecies are coming to pass now. That he passed away in September of 2019, and things are just happening just as he said. And he gives us as advice in order to survive this next 10 or 11 years, the next decade, because we are the final generation. We are the remnant. And I'd encourage you to subscribe to the channel and listen to something every single day. Check out the playlist in the description area below. It's keep learning and learning. Things are going to be happening fast, and you want to be aware of what's going on for you and your family, your church, and your your county and your city. At least you want to know what's going to be happening, even if they don't happen to you. You want to know what's going to be happening in the future for your family, especially your kids and your grandkids. All right. Enjoy. Like I said, subscribe, give a thumbs up, and keep learning.
Welcome once again to the Word for the Week. We're going to continue on today. We've been talking about love and faith and sacrifice and all of those things. Today, if I would put it, how would I say? Well, what I want to talk about is no man lives unto himself. And we'll see what that means. No man, none of us live unto ourselves. Whether we like it or not, we don't live unto ourselves. We all leave our mark upon this planet Earth and the world, our little world, our big world in which we live. We all leave a mark. No man lives unto himself. There's a profound statement that the Apostle Paul made in Romans 14:7. It says, "For none of us lives unto himself, and no man dieth unto himself." And again in Philippians 1:20, "According to my earnest expectation and my hope, that in nothing I shall be ashamed, but that with boldness, as always, so now, also Christ shall be magnified in my body, whether it be by life or death." These are kingdom principles. Nobody lives unto themselves. You leave a trail behind you, and it's a very substantial trail. As you walk through this life, you leave a trail of life or death, and that trail remains and has a lasting impact of either being positive or a negative effect. These trails of influence remain and often multiply, even get bigger. This is one of the most fundamental realities of life. And we need to understand it. You know, the Apostle Paul went on to say in Romans 14:10, he said, "Why do you judge your brother? Why do you set you're not your brother? For we all shall stand before the judgment seat of Christ." We're all going to have to stand there. Verse 12, "So then every one of us shall give an account of himself to God." Now, you cannot judge because you're not in possession to know all of the facts. You know, we judge people, but we don't know their background. We don't know what they inherited from parents in the background. We don't know anything. We're not clever enough to judge people, so don't do it. Yes, okay. Not only we leave behind a trail of influence, but we create our own world, a heavenly realm or a hellish realm. We have that ability of human beings. What you emanate, light or darkness, listen to me, creates your world, your own private world. It has a greater influence. Your thoughts, your emotions, your speech create your world. The Bible is very clear on this. What you emanate, light or darkness, is a power, and it forms the world in which you're living. Your thoughts and emotions and speech. You know, in Luke chapter 11, verse 52, Jesus said, "Woe unto you lawyers, for you have taken away the key of knowledge. Ye didn't enter into them yourselves, and them that were entering in, you tried to stop them or hindered them." You know, one of the keys to the kingdom is the key of knowledge. Interesting. You know, the lawyers here were the authority on the Mosaic law, but they used it for their own benefit, their own ends. You know, the church in the Dark Ages kept people in darkness, narrow-minded, not understanding the whole truth, you know, and we're not fully out of that syndrome yet. The key of knowledge, understanding God's ways and principles and how things work. In Hebrews 11:3, through faith we understand the worlds were framed by the word of God. So the things which we see around us were not made of things which we can see. So let's read that again and paraphrase it. So through faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, not just this world, plural, the worlds. So that things which are seen, the things of this physical realm, you see me, you see yourself, you see your home, you see everything around you. These were not made of things which do appear. So what were they made of? It's interesting that the Bible makes this very clear. Through faith, it says, we understand that God made this world out of invisible things by the spoken word. So by faith, which comes first? Understanding or faith? No, it's faith comes first, then we understand. We have to believe that God created the heavens and the earth. You know, the whole theory of evolution is so bizarre and so unscientific. It is unbelievable. And the Bible talks about in these last days, they will believe a lie. You know, but through faith, we understand that God created. You can't come to understand unless you believe God. Believe. Through faith we understand. Now faith is the substance. Hebrews 11:1. Faith is a substance. Well, how can that be? It is a substance of things hoped for. It is the evidence that we do not yet see. Yeah, it's a remarkable phrase. Faith is the substance of things which we're believing for, hoping for, and it is the evidence of things that we can't see. Faith is a substance, an essence, an underlying reality which we can't see. When you have faith, true faith, substance is created, substance is there. Faith creates substance, which through speech forms it into reality. So the substance, what is that substance? This is the whole process of creation. God created the world this way. God said, let there be light, and so it was created. Genesis 1:3. Now, unbelief is also a power, which when spoken releases substance. Now listen to me. Releases substance which creates your world as you speak it. It creates your reality as you speak it. See, You leave behind a trail of life and death, or death. You cannot live unto yourself. You affect this world. You affect other people around you. You affect the home you live in. You affect the walls of the home you live in. You leave behind a trail of life or death. You affect nature around you. We'll look at that later. Unfortunately, the fall of man affected the whole of nature. Think about that. In Genesis 1:28, it said, God blessed them and said unto them, be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth, and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, the fowl of the air, and every living thing that moves upon the earth. And everything was perfect. Everything was perfect. Until one day, it changed. Adam sinned. It's interesting that God gave Adam dominion over the whole of this world, this earth. But you see, Adam sinned, and this is what happened. When Adam sinned, creation, the world around us, and creation, the natural world, was affected greatly. He said, from now on, because of this, Genesis 3:18, thorns and thistles shall bring forth, and they shall eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of your face shall you eat bread, till it return to the ground. For out of it was taken, and dust thou art, dust thou shalt return. You know, it's amazing. Everything was working perfectly. The whole of nature was doing great. No problems, nothing happening. There was no caterpillars eating the cabbages. Everything was perfect until Adam sinned. Because Adam was given dominion over that. When Adam fell, creation fell as well. That's important to remember. Thorns and thistles suddenly appeared. They'd never been here before. Years ago I think it was now, I shared with what became known as the Baxter effect. Really important. There's a guy by the name, a scientist by the name of Cleve Baxter. And in the New York, he worked in the New York Institute of Polygraphic Work. He was working with plants. And he decided they were using the same kind of technology, but a little more complicated, that they use with lie detectors, you know? And so it was running all of these tests. They wired up plants and stuff with lie detector technology. Now, if he decided to burn a leaf on a plant, they got a strong polygraph reaction to the plant. It went off the scale. Now note, he didn't hurt the plant. He just decided to hurt the plant. Now this is really important you understand this. He hadn't done it. But because he decided to do that, when the moment he decided to do that, something emanated from him that was destructive. He hadn't even done it physically, but it was emanating from him. He didn't actually burn it, he just intended to. And the plant felt that, reacted to it. It went off the scale. So after long, careful clinical testing, he came to the conclusion that a plant, nature, will react in a measurable way just to the intent to harm it. This became known as the Baxter effect. Now, when you think about that, you see, it's very interesting. The next experiment was what's called the brine dump experiment. It involved a container of shrimps in water in one room, that was behind closed doors, another container of shrimps in water in another room. He took a shrimp out of the water, and it was alive. He dropped it into boiling water. Sounds gruesome, I know. But he dropped it into boiling water and it died instantly. However, all of the shrimp that were down the way, all reacted. Now they thought, well, how can that be? So they ran this experiment over and over again. The same result. The shrimps that were not connected in any way to the shrimp that died, they were in another room further down, or went up, the polygraph went off the scale. So they thought, well, how does that work? What is happening there? The conclusion came, living things react to other living things, and they don't have to be close together. Plants react. Now, it's interesting that they also found that if you were cropping a plant, like picking fruit off it, tearing the fruit off, the plant didn't react. Neither did the other plants next to it react. You think, well, that's strange. You see, that's what the plant existed for. It was producing fruit. When they pruned it, then that meant cutting into it, they didn't react. And so, after going through, test after test after test, they realized it was the intent that was linked to the thought and the emotions that were creating this. So, they came to another remarkable, and this might kind of blow your mind a bit, but they came to another remarkable conclusion, that plants can remember. You think, come on. But the experiments went like this. 2 plants were placed in a room. One man came in and ripped one of the other plants to pieces. The other plant was right next to it. And he was ripping this plant, destroying it, but not touching this other plant. Except the other plant reacted violently in the sense of the graph went off the scale. The plant reacted in that sense. The plant remembered what that man emanated. They found that when that man, weeks later, came into that room where that plant, the good plant was, the other one had been destroyed, weeks later, when that man came into that room, the plant reacted. And you think, wow, that can't be. So after running it over and over and over, the same tests, they found it was the same thing. Plants remembered what that man was emanating when he destroyed the other plant. And it reacted. They also found that plants subject to shock and hurt of other plants fared badly and often became diseased. It also was found that if a human was injured in the presence of the plant, say he cut his hand and blood came out and those blood cells obviously were dying, the plants reacted to that as well. You say, well, how can that be? Well, in Genesis 4 and verse 10 it says, and he said, what have you done? The voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Whoa. See, no one lives unto himself. Nobody dies unto himself. No man is an island unto himself. Nobody acts in isolation. You leave a trail behind you. Trail of life or death, destruction or healing, blessing or cursing. You create your world. See, this world, the earth, is angry and is hurting. Look at the weather patterns over the last decade, over the last few years. The earth is hurting and is angry. You see, we create our own hell or heavenly conditions. Romans chapter 8 and verse 18, it says, for I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared to the glory that shall be revealed in us. Yeah, the world might be going to pot. The world might be disintegrating around us, but change is coming compared to the glory which is going to be revealed. The sufferings of this present time. are not worthy to be compared with the glory that's coming. In Romans 8:19, the earnest expectation of the creature, of creation, waits for the manifestation of the sons of God. See, the earnest expectation. The world around us, the trees around us, the animals, are in expectation. The earnest expectation of creation. How can creation be expecting something, waiting for something? Waiting for the manifestation of the sons of God to do something about them, to help them. It's just the Bible. I'm not making this up. You know, Romans 8:20, for the creature was made, the creation was made subject to vanity, less than what God intended, in other words. Not willingly. It wasn't their fault. Not willingly, but by reason of him who has subjected them in hope. How many of you know that creation has a hope? They're hoping for something. Romans 8:21, because the creation itself also shall be delivered, the creation around us. It's physical faith, the animal creation, the trees, everything around creation will be delivered from a bondage of corruption. Whoa. Where'd that come from? Into the glorious liberty of the children of God. For we know that the whole of creation right now is groaning. In other words, the whole of creation around us is hurting. It's travailing, listen to me, in pain, it says. Until now. Why? What's that now? Until the manifestation of the sons of God comes on the scene. You know, you cannot understand the wonder of God's world until you understand the hurt of this world, the hurt of creation, and start to be kind to it. Let me say that again. You cannot understand I got this from Enoch. You cannot understand the wonder of God's world unless you understand its hurt and start to be kind to it. That's something you need to the next few days think about. When Adam sinned, man fell, the whole of creation went down. What will bring healing to this abused creation? The sons of God moving in perfect love. You see, the environment is waiting for God's sons to love it back to its original condition. And it will happen. Faith, let's come back to faith before we close. Faith emits a creative power. Faith is a substance. It releases substance through the spoken words, feelings, and emotions. You see? For in Jesus Christ is neither circumcision availeth anything or uncircumcision, but faith that works by love. Ephesians 3:17, that Christ may dwell in your heart by faith, only when you're grounded and rooted in love. Ephesians 3:17. So faith and love is creative when they're in harmony. It's a substance. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for. So faith creates a substance that hasn't yet been formed. It's just hoped for. Faith creates a substance. It's the evidence that can come into reality, but it's not seen yet, the Bible says. Faith takes hold of substance. Well, what is substance? That which you can't see. The great word that's substance is the Greek word hypostasis. It means the essence of foundation from which all things exist. Now, what is the essence of this creative world? Atoms, of course. Everything's made of atoms, made of the atomic structures, the building blocks of all material, atoms. Everything in this world is composed of them. And everything is held together by the power of God. He is before all things, and by him all things continue to exist. They don't fall apart. Okay. He is before all things, held together by God. See, we know atoms can be arranged to make anything. This table, the chair, you're sitting on, wood around you. Everything around you is made out of atoms, formed in different ways. Molecules in the atom can be arranged to make anything, to take any kind of form. Now faith takes hold of the atoms, that which cannot be seen, and released by faith, turned it into reality, things hoped for. You see, in Romans chapter 4 and verse 17, and we're closing now, it says, as it is written, I have made you a father of many nations, before whom he believed. All right, talking about Abraham, made him a father of many nations, which he believed. Even God, who quickens the dead and calleth those things which are not as though they were. Whoa, okay. Calling things which do not exist as if they already exist. That's what he's saying. Speech is required along with love for God's creation, the atoms, to form into what we recall reality. Let me say that again. Speech is required. Faith, speech, connected to love, the intent, for God's creation. The atoms will form into that reality. It's interesting. Faith worketh by love, is energized by love. See, none of you live unto yourselves. We leave a trail behind us, whether we like it or not, and that trail remains. What are we doing to this world we live in? What are we doing? One another. We are made in the image and likeness of God. Humans are. We are made in the image and likeness of God, and we are made, Psalm 86, to have dominion over this world and everything in it. See, this world is groaning, the Bible says, continues to groan under the weight of sin, negativeness, sin, violation of God's laws, cause of, all of the stuff that's happening around us. Nature is protesting. Volcanoes erupt, earthquakes. The wind causes enormous destruction. The whole of creation is hurting. The whole of creation is angry. The human race was given dominion and care of this creation in our world. Time is running out. We're living in a time with what the Bible talks about as being the last days. We're now on the brink of a whole different kind of world coming into being. No, climate change is not going to destroy this world, we do have climate change, but listen to me. Climate change has happened before, and many times. This is not something new. And it's happened when humans weren't producing all this pollution into the world. You got to be really careful what this so-called scientists are trying to tell us today. Sure, there is climate change. That's happening. You can't deny that. But what's causing it is another thing. When I consider the heavens and the work of my fingers, the moon and the stars which are ordained, what is man in all of this? You made him to have dominion over the works of his hands. Time is running out. We're coming down to a glorious 1,000 years in living in a world with the way in which God intended it, building cities that glorify God and his creation. The wolf shall lie down with the lamb, the leopard shall lie down with the kid, the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and the little child shall lead them. That's Psalm 11 verses 5 and 6. Verse 7 says, and the cow and the bear shall feed together, their young ones shall lie down together. Can you imagine the calf lying down with a bear? And the lion shall eat straw like the ox. And the suckling child shall play out the hole of an asp, that's a snake. And the weaned child shall put his hand in the crocodile's den. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain. For the earth, listen to me, shall be full of the knowledge of God, how things work, and the waters that cover the sea. Nobody lives unto himself, Romans 14:7. Nobody dies unto themselves. They leave a trail. We leave our mark on this planet Earth. As you walk through life, you leave a trail of life or death which remains. These trails of influence will often multiply. We create our own heaven, our own hell around us. What you emanate, light or darkness, is the power that creates your world. Negative emotions, negative thoughts, negative speech creates hell. It's your choice, even though you are a Christian. It is the cause and effect, is a kingdom law. We create our circumstances. That's the kind of world we live in. And so, nobody lives unto themselves, or dies unto themselves. Because we're made in the image and likeness of God, we are constantly creating by the words that we speak, the emotions we emanate, the thoughts we have. Attitudes of fear, hate, jealousy, self-pity, or love, peace, praise, thanksgiving. They're not just attitudes. They're a force, they're a power which creates reality. So, like David said in Psalm 141:3, set a watch, O Lord, over my mouth and keep the door of my lips. God bless you.
Subscribe to the channel, Remnant. Keep learning. God bless you in Jesus' name.